Long before my grandfather gave in to the temptation, and prior to confronting his young wife and son with his dream, even before he stretched his imagination westward, his simple life as a shepherd in a rural mountaintop village in Basilicata, Italy's poorest region, was well on its way to becoming a lone casualty in his war against fate. The day-long journey to the wide open spaces, the caring and tending of a family flock, the solitude of a man alone with his thoughts, not to mention the sameness of the trail leading home, all carried with it a callous price tag labeled survival. Modesty was a virtue born into the hills and cobblestone paths of tiny Tricarico. Situated along the winding Appian Way, northeast of Potenza, in the southern heart of Italy. Tradition and heritage were every family's coat of arms, their link to a long line of Roman defenders and survivors. In that day and age, they were soil-raised harvesters, vineyard masters, livestock breeders, and holy day celebrators, poised for the adventure of their lifetime. The year was 1909, and a new restlessness had nudged awake the spirit and passion of a proud and noble people. For my grandfather, the New World brought a new language to conquer, a new trade to hone, not to mention a new citizenship to shape and mold, while hanging on to his Italian roots and memories of a land made special by a churning sea of Mediterranean influence. In the dark tunnels of an Illinois coal mine, Rocco Romano surely missed the light of a full day and the fresh, earthy air of his Italian homeland. But news from friends signaled a sea of change, and he found the will to take on this bold new world called America. As for my grandmother, it was 5 years of raising her firstborn alone and wrestling with the threat to follow her husband across the ocean or else. It meant saying goodbye to a mother who would die of a broken heart 6 months later. Above all else, it meant giving up a little of her soul and transplanting it to a small garden plot behind a cellared house in an English-speaking world that would eventually feed and raise a family of 10. To Domenica Romano's credit, she never learned to speak English. She never gave in to store-bought food, modern preservatives, and quick-rising bread recipes. Polenta, for her, was a staple to be baked, cooked, and prepared a dozen different ways. Homemade red sauce was a privilege to make, a reward for a garden well kept. Bread was kneaded and baked before the light of day, and depending on its hardness, was given its last rites at the bottom of a vegetable-rich minestrone soup. Years later, when my father and aunts baked Americanized pizza for the masses in the 60s and 70s, my grandmother could be found in the heat of August in a back room, hand-slicing green peppers and white onions. As a curious youngster and not privy to the stringent, overwhelming chemistry of freshly cut onions, I would notice tears streaming down her face, and she would shoo me away when I asked if she was feeling sad for Italy. When I try to fathom the endless sacrifices my grandparents made, I can't help but notice the pride in their eyes that peer out from the yellowed, Sunday-attired photographs of them that all of us hold as relics. Yes, they were immigrants with a mission of betterment, but they remain torchbearers of our family's purpose and identity, which I'm glad to report has survived the test of time and modern inventions. Thanks to them, we are today what they stood for then, a generation ripe with promise. Italian writer Paul Pellicelli says it best. They didn't bring valuables with them, they brought values. Now, after making 3 trips to Tricarico with its still vibrant city square, open-air vegetable and fruit markets, and hilly grazing fields that stretch out from every direction of town, the joy and satisfaction of experiencing the root system of our family's transplanted heritage has settled in the far reaches of my soul. Like the elderly monk in Trecarco's oldest church, who offered me a toast of his homemade red vino, I salute Rocco and Domenica. Because of their courage and quiet determination, the label Italian, and I wear it proudly, will forever grace the mantles of our rich and profound history. There is an old Italian proverb that goes like this:
El contantino non far sapere quando è buono il formaggio con le pere.
Don't let the peasant know how good the cheese is with the pear. As a young boy, I remember hiding in Rocco's cellar long after he passed away, and the lingering sweetness of his homemade red crept into my memory like a first communion.